Greetings everyone! If you've ever watched one of those greatest album covers of all time videos on YouTube, you've probably seen albums thrown around like Dark Side of the Moon, Rage Against the Machine, In the Court of the Crimson King, T-Pab, the Banana one. But those classic albums have been discussed to death at this point, and to be honest, I'm kinda tired of it. So in this video, I'm gonna go through 10 great album covers that you probably haven't seen pop up in any of these videos. At least, I hope so. So, without further ado, let's get to number 1. Pulse Demon by Merzbow. A cover so great, I have a sticker of it on my laptop. If you've watched the last couple videos I've done on this channel recently, then you may have realized that I like noise music. In fact, I love noise music. And this album is one of my favorite noise albums of all time, and also has probably, maybe even my favorite album cover ever? I mean, if you actually go and listen to Pulse Demon, as harsh and abrasive as it is, you can see that this cover is like the absolute perfect representation of it. I mean, your eyes like start to hurt if you look at it for too long. I'm honestly considering just taking it away from this side of the screen because it's probably just burned into your eyes right now. I don't know how it does that, but it does. But yeah, there's just something so intriguing and like kind of gorgeous about this album cover that I've never really seen in a cover before, besides maybe that one Animal Collective album cover. And I think it deserves to be praised as one of the best album covers ever made. Number 2. Incinerator by Dream Crusher. Dream Crusher is probably like my favorite artist of all time at the moment, at least favorite solo artist. And this cover is just awesome. Like, it's so visually appealing, so contrasty. I mean, the like bright green and the bright red of the text on the side. I'm just gonna let you guys know, while editing, I realized that I happen to look to the side a lot during this video. I don't have a script or anything that I keep looking at. I just sort of do that for whatever reason, so just letting you know. It just like meshes really well together. And it's also just kind of like horrifying looking. Like, what is this person with the flowers and like they're maybe hanging with their arms up? I don't know what's going on there, but it's creepy and also really cool. And I think the bright, saturated colors and heavy contrast and just weird, dark imagery going on also perfectly represents the album. Just listen to the first minute of the title track, Incinerator, with that crazy, abrupt, harsh noise burst, followed by that super intense pounding kick drum. That, paired with the cover, I think is just amazing, and this cover, once again, does a perfect job of representing the sound of the album. Number 3. Beat by Bowery Electric. Alright, so now we're shifting from noise territory to shoegaze. This album, released in 1996, is sort of like a shoegaze, down-tempo trip-hop mashup. Unlike the last two covers that are really visually striking and a little hard to look at, this one's more subtle and murky and just kind of calming. But once again, there's just something about that brown color with the sort of grainy highway picture that perfectly encapsulates the album that it represents. Something I personally really love in photography and just art in general is the color brown, and just really deep layers of brown, different shades of it. But yeah, the use of brown in covers like this and other albums out of the 90s like Tri Repeat, Londinium by Archive, they just kind of make me picture this sort of dreary, down-tempo vibe that I got from a lot of 90s music, especially trip-hop. And I think this cover is the perfect example of that. Number 4. Woob 1194 by Woob. There isn't really that much to say about this cover besides the fact that it's just 4 penguins, and it looks nice. And with the album being full of these like worldly, earth, gorgeous textures and samples, it's just a really wonderful cover. And it also is responsible for probably my favorite Rate Your Music review ever. As far as 1994 albums released by artists whose name, which begins with a W followed by 2 identical vowels, is featured in the top right corner of the album cover, which otherwise features 4 figures, the second from the left, which is noticeably smaller than the rest, standing in front of a blue background, go, I've heard better. Do you know what other cover from 1994 this review is referring to? Can you guess which one? Okay, back to the video. Not much else to say. I just think this cover's awesome. Number 5. A Home Beneath the Floorboards by Pseudo Commando. A cover so great, I also have a sticker of it on my laptop. Don't worry, that's the last sticker for this video. Oh boy, it's another noise album, this time Harsh Noise Wall. Yeah, this album is one of the most pounding, harrowing experiences of music I've ever heard. And this cover of just this weird, glitchy guy sitting in the corner is so creepy and perfect. There isn't very much known about the guy behind Pseudo Commando. I mean, this is the only album he ever released. But what we get with this album is these brutal textures of noise just pounding against our head for over an hour. And I've always speculated about the title of this album, A Home Beneath the Floorboards. I mean, what does it mean? Is it referring to how in the Holocaust, Jewish people had to hide under their floors to avoid being killed by Nazi soldiers? Or is it about some person similar to the one on the cover who maybe just lives under their floorboards? I don't know. But once again, if you just look at this cover, you kind of know you're in for a wild ride, and that's what the album delivers. I definitely recommend you check it out. Number 6. Modern Jester by Aaron Dillaway. This isn't so much harsh noise as it is pretty noisy and disturbing sound collage. In fact, this album is probably among the top 5 most disturbing albums I've ever listened to, and this album cover perfectly represents why it's so disturbing. There's a wide variety of sounds sampled in this album, ranging from industrial machines to boats to just really gross, vulgar human noises. And the album cover depicts a very strange, disturbed-looking, creepy man with a messed up face. I mean, I know it's a mask, but I'd like to pretend he's a real person. The soundscapes that you hear in this album feel like they're coming from this guy, just like this really messed up, freaky, disturbing individual. And there's something about the way that he's just looking at you in the cover that's super unsettling to me. Another detail I like is just the intense grain that's cast across the whole cover. It makes it look like it's this sort of lost relic that was found and no one really knows who this guy is. And also the title fits this cover well too, Modern Jester. It makes this guy seem like he's used as some sort of laughingstock to a higher power. Anyway, this album's great, super creepy, fun, even disturbing, noisy. It's the whole package, really. I suggest you listen to it. Number 7. Amber by Autechre. I find the vibe of this to be similar to the Woob album cover, just like a nice picture of the environment, and not much else to it. While Dream Crusher may be my favorite artist, Autechre are my favorite band, and since I included Dream Crusher here, I feel like I had to include Autechre. And plus, the band just consistently delivers us great album covers. I mean, I have so many Autechre album covers to pick from. This just happens to be my favorite. One interesting detail about this cover is that of their entire discography, this is the only album cover that is a physical, real-life picture of something. So while all their other covers I think are great, there's just something about this one that actually feels real, like real life. And there is a very real location that this was taken at. The Sandstone Cliffs in Cappadocia, Turkey, taken by landscape photographer Nick Mears. I just recited that from my memory and did not just look it up on Google. And yeah, the album as well as the cover are beautiful, warm, a little bit strange, but that's just sort of Autechre's whole deal, so you'll get used to it. And the cover just feels so inviting, like you want to listen to this album when you see the cover. Unlike those noise albums I mentioned where you stare at it for 1 second, you're like, oh god, I'm uncomfortable. This one's just like, oh, this is nice. Let's give this album a listen. Number 8. Kesto 234.48.4 by Pansonic. Pansonic are a really interesting band. They started out in the 90s, originally with the name Panasonic, until they ran into a conflict with a certain other company sharing the same name. I think you can guess which one. And so they just changed it to Pansonic, and produced a bunch of really interesting, sort of glitchy, minimal techno slash micro sound albums. But with this album, they branched out into a new, noisier, harsher sound. This isn't a noise album, but it has a lot of super noisy, glitchy, almost like noise rock-esque textures along with these power noise beats that they'd never done before. And so this album was just a grand new step for them. Also, it's 4 hours long. But putting the contents of the album aside, because there's a lot more to it than just what I've described, the album cover is really interesting to me. There are a lot of really good dog album covers, like two covers I almost considered including this video are Without Warning by 21 Savage and Re-Entry by Techno Animal. Those are both great, and they depict a fierce dog just growling at the camera, but this one took a more subtle approach. To me at least, there's something, again, unsettling about the fact that this dog is blurred out, but sort of looking at you, but also not, and it isn't the focus of the picture, but it's there, and the wall is in focus. There's a lot of elements going on here that make me really love it. And the color palette too. I like the brownish, orange, and green contrast. I think it looks nice. It's a very cool photo that works well with an interesting album, to say the least. Outside of the harsh power noise beats, you also get some more down-tempo techno stuff, and then even later into the album, this really, really minimal, distant ambient sounding stuff. And then the final track, an hour-long drone ambient piece. This album's crazy, but also I think you should listen to it. If you were interested in listening to a long-ass album, here you go, listen to this one. Number 9! Frozen Niagara Falls by Prurient. Do you see a face? Because I see a face, and it's kind of horrifying. Frozen Niagara Falls is an album full of this really cool hybrid of dark ambience, noise, really glitchy, kind of spine-tingling textures, these super hard-hitting beats occasionally, and there's just something so unsettling, almost like uncanny about this album cover. Just this odd leather-looking piece of material that really just looks like a demon. Like, look at these eyes. It looks like it wants to kill me. Yeah, say what you will about Prurient. I mean, I know his collaboration choices are questionable at best, but he makes great music and also great covers, and this is probably his best, in my opinion. There's also something about this cover that just feels so mysterious, like, what is this thing? Is it a piece of tribal clothing? Or just something made for the sake of looking creepy? I don't know. Like, it looks like it's designed to hang in your closet and freak you out when you wake up in the middle of the night and think it's like a creature trying to kill you. But yeah, I just think this cover is great. I also like that it's positioned slightly to the left. I think that's a good creative choice. I like the black and white contrast. There's a few black and white albums in this video. It's not my favorite Prurient album, but I think I'd consider it essential. And yeah, I think you should check it out. So before we get into the last album cover in this video, I'm just going to go through a few honorable mentions, Watch Mojo style. 94 Discount by Oval. Mersbeat by Mersbow. Rainbow Mirror by Prurient. The Drought by Puce Mary. And finally, Trap Story. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get to number 10! The Disintegration Loops by William Basinski. Of all the albums on the list, this one for me is by far the most emotionally impactful, and it isn't just for the cover art. This is also probably the most infamous album on the list, right up there with Pulse Demon, but for those who haven't heard it, I'll just describe it. Pretty much, the Disintegration Loops is a single segment of an orchestral piece that loops and deteriorates over the course of an hour, and that's it. It starts sounding normal, untouched, and ends just sounding like this kind of jarble of static. Now, the reason I love this cover so much is mostly because of the backstory behind it. The story goes like this. One day in late 2001, after creating the tapes, Basinski was sitting in his balcony in Manhattan just listening to them. All of a sudden, he witnesses 9/11 in front of his own eyes, looking out his balcony. And so what he does, while the tapes are still playing in the background, is he gets out a camcorder, sets it up on his balcony, and just records the environment for the whole day, basically. And so what you are seeing in this cover is a frame out of that video of smoke rolling in to New York City. And fast forward to now, the Disintegration tapes are, in my opinion, probably the greatest 9/11 tribute albums ever made. And I did say albums plural because there are actually 4 volumes of this. This is just the first one, and it's kind of the most iconic, so I picked this one, but all the other covers are great. Also, the music is great. If you just want some really, really long, drawn-out drone ambience of the exact same 15-second sample looped over and over again, this is the album for you. And so are the other 3. Alright, that's it for this video. First video with my face in it. First video of me talking about something. If you want to see more stuff like this, just let me know. Maybe I'll do another one of these because there are plenty more great album covers. Also, I could do one for bad album covers, the worst album covers ever made, because I could definitely think of a few of those off the top of my head. I also make music. I've got a Bandcamp. I'll link that in the description. I'm making a new album. It's probably going to come out late this summer, possibly August or something like that. Bandcamp's not like fully set up. There's one album on it right now. I've made multiple albums. Someone asked me if I could put my first album on it, and I was like, sure. So I'm going to do that at some point. But yeah, I would appreciate it if you subscribed, listened to my music, etc. And that's it. Also, I'm house sitting for someone right now, so this is not my house, and you will never ever see me in this location again. Okay, bye.